Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another long weekend. Went to Disneyland with my fiance both days, so walked around a lot and ready for more of a chill day today. So, whatever you guys want to chat about, I am here for that. Posted some interesting videos in the past couple of weeks. We had my one about Mary that I posted most recently, which actually was very coincidental that was on the feast day of the Immaculate Conception in the Catholic Church. I kind of realized that just in the middle of writing that, so it was kind of funny that was how that worked out. Convenient timing, hopefully not disrespectful timing. Yeah, not always great to criticize doctrines on the day that they're being celebrated, but maybe that's the best time. That's kind of the question. Is that the best time, the worst time? I don't know. I just did it anyways because that was the script. That was what I wanted to write about. What else have we done lately? We had our Protestant video about what the reformers believed. Yeah, content's been pretty interesting lately. I'm trying to think, what have I been thinking about lately? I want to write. So I made in one of my videos, I talked about C.S. Lewis. Read a quote from him from the book or from Mere Christianity when he was talking about faith. Which video was that? Oh, I talked about Trent Horn being a heretic. It might have been the Ephesians 2 video, potentially. I think that might be right, actually. But I realized that there was another part of that book that I was thinking about a lot more, thinking about faith and the virtue of faith, and really wanted to talk about that as well, because I feel like that... I realized that's actually from the same chapter that I already quoted from, so maybe I was just paying more attention the day that I read that chapter, or that chapter just really struck me and spoke to me in an interesting way. But I want to talk a little bit more about that. If I wasn't streaming today, that's probably what I would have wrote my video about. But I still want to keep these streams up, keep them up monthly. I want to keep in the habit of going out and streaming, doing everything so scripted. I feel I don't want to lose an extemporaneous ability, the ability to speak extemporaneously about these subjects. But it'll be more fun, definitely, when we start getting more viewership soon. What did I do today? Today, worked most of the morning. I also was listening to the Piers Morgan's Nick Fuentes interview. Not to talk about Fuentes again, because that's also kind of a broken record on this channel. Though I haven't talked about him as much lately. That was kind of like... It's been interesting to see how big he's gotten. I was thinking about it. The first time that I saw him was way back in 2018. I watched him and the Distributist in a debate on God, which is really interesting. That's how I would encounter him. I think it was on the Warski stream. I don't remember, actually. That sounds right. But I think that was the first time that I encountered him, and I was honestly, I mean, it's theological subjects I feel like are not his best showings. I felt a little bit confused why he was so, or why they'd bring him on. I'm like, I didn't think that he said much of interest or much that was very good in that particular video. But obviously since then he's continued to grow, and I realized he's not a religious guy, or he is religious, but like he's not a religion guy in most of what he talks about, obviously. And then watched him more and made that a big focus of my channel after making that in 2020, so a couple of years later. It's an interesting period of my life too. I was trying to think whether I was Christian or had been going to objectivism at that point. I think it was early 2018, was right around when I discovered objectivism and began really starting to study it. might have been that summer when I started getting really into it. I think it was that spring when I like read The Fountainhead and got super into that for a while, and then eventually I left Catholicism around that time. I almost feel like it was more just personal stuff going on than anything. No, I think it was ideological, but I mean, the personal aspects do play a role in it as well. I think I realized I wasn't getting as much out of it as I once thought. Man, this could be an introspective stream today. Talking to all 0 viewers about my deconversion. But yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about that. Obviously now having come back to it, not coming back to Catholicism, coming back to Protestantism, it's been interesting. Yeah, but I wonder how much of that was just like mental health stuff going on at the time, and just being a kid and thinking that I was getting like, I kind of saw it as like, oh, I'm getting everything in the world out of this, and like that, and then stuff just wasn't connecting for some reason. Things didn't feel the same as before, and I guess I started looking elsewhere maybe. Although I did cling on to belief in God for a while, so I don't think that's entirely it either. But I do think it's interesting how my mind likes to jump to very simple, like, this one thing happened and that changed my whole perspective and ideology on the world, when I don't think it's ever that simple. I think things tend to sort of arise out of multiple things happening at once. I think that's kind of an obvious point. I think everyone kind of realizes that as well. But I think that's more true than we give it credit for. Of course, as more someone focused on the sort of intellectual side of things, I've always kind of I always explain it in terms of the intellect, and always explain it in terms of, oh, I came to this conclusion and had this thing happen, and that obviously logically directly led to that, and that directly led to that logically. And it just doesn't work like that. The things that we find, I mean, this is going back to the whole why I'm a Christian video, so I am almost explaining it and doubling down on the sort of intellectual side behind it. So much of what we believe to be reasonable is so shaped by who we are, and what we intuitively find reasonable and not reasonable is also shaped by who we are, because so little in life and in determining our worldviews and all these things can be brought down to a logical syllogism. And I think that's kind of the way that I would think about the world. Growing up, especially, I was super obsessed with in high school with like logically proving God and all that sort of stuff. But I think that's important, and there's a lot of things in the world that point to God, but imagining that you're going to have some proof that makes belief or non-belief inescapable is a little bit silly, I think. Maybe it can be done. I don't know, but we don't have all the information to make that doable, to make that sort of logical, deductive proof that belief in God is logical or illogical, to make that even doable. And I was really searching for that, I think, through a lot of life. But ultimately, it kind of comes the other way around. It's not through us seeking God that we find God. It's through God instilling himself in our hearts. And then we begin to seek him, and we begin to find him, and we begin to grow. It's never our own initial action. Yeah. Since finishing Mere Christianity, this was like just over Thanksgiving. I started reading Augustine, but I haven't had time really to read it. But at the beginning of Confessions, he talks about and I might butcher this, but I thought this was interesting. This like asking like, oh, do I first seek, or do I know first, or do I what? I'm gonna butcher it. Never mind. It's fine. But like sort of this idea like we must know something about God to seek God, but we also must first seek God to know him. And it was like this really beautiful like what's the word for that? For some reason my mind keeps going to like antithesis, thesis, synthesis, like some sort of like Hegelian thing, but yeah, I don't know what the exact word for that is. It's not parallelism. Never mind. It's fine. It's fine. Is this what you guys? This is what you guys don't come here for. I just kind of ramble, so it is what it is. But yeah. What else is there to talk about? Oh, okay. Let's talk about the Fuentes Piers Morgan's interview, because that's actually really fresh on my brain. So watching that was really interesting to me, because like you see throughout what the video, like what Piers is trying to do, and Fuentes knows exactly what he's trying to do the whole time too. And I feel like just the fact that it's like so blatant, and Fuentes just kind of owns it's a very interesting interaction. It's not something that I ever expected necessarily, but he just kind of owns everything, and that almost gives the attacks less credibility. It makes them seem sort of meaningless in this context, which was the way that interview went, I think, in my opinion, was very favorable to Fuentes. And I think to some extent in Piers' mind, he thought he won. He thought he accomplished all the goals that I think he had coming into the interview. Like his goal was to make Fuentes out to be a racist or to be a misogynist and to do all that sort of stuff. And in a way he accomplished that, because I mean there were ways in which the point that he was making the whole time was, Fuentes considers him, like, called himself a racist. He called himself a racist, but the way the interview went, it didn't have that same effect that it would have maybe 10, 20 years ago if someone had just said that. Because you kind of know what you're getting with Fuentes. You know the type of things that he's going to say. So I don't think that the tactic was very effective. And this is, historically, this is the tactic that works on people. This is the tactic that exposes people and makes them lose credibility in the public eye. But it really hasn't worked. It's like this like paradigm of how you win politics and how you do optics has been completely flipped on its head. And in these interviews, it almost looks like Piers is just nagging him to an extent. Because we've all seen the clip, so maybe I guess maybe from the perspective of someone who's just not familiar with Fuentes, maybe that could have been shocking. But the fact is, we've all seen these clips. We all know. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe I've seen more of him than other people have. But I think just based on the wide exposure that he's gotten now, like most people have seen this stuff and have seen his responses to this stuff too. So it's interesting that it's always that same tactic. Maybe it's just an age thing. Maybe it's just a generation thing. But it seems like to win the optics battle, we can't use boomer tactics on these people. I don't know. Maybe that's the best way to say it. The types of things I think that the desensitized, honestly, younger generation find appalling and find to be horrific, I think have changed quite a bit. And maybe the internet is to blame for that. Maybe because we've seen so much of this stuff. We've seen all these jokes. We've seen all this stuff for so long. Maybe that's why this sort of stuff doesn't seem to land as well. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're all just sociopaths now. But yeah, I don't know. I guess those were kind of just my thoughts so far. So without watching the whole interview on this stream, which is not really what I want to do. I want to be able to enjoy my night rather than continuing to have these like weird esoteric political conversations. Because watching, I mean, how relevant is it really watching some British dude argue with a racist from Chicago? That's the word, he uses it for himself. So I don't know how relevant that is even to my life at this point. I think I burnt myself out of politics, and I mean, maybe just getting a job, getting older, focusing on the actuarial exams and that sort of stuff, that makes it a little bit less interesting, less appealing. It's hard to schizophrenically scroll through these YouTube videos and form a full worldview on every single niche topic when you have a 9-to-5 job. Maybe that's intentional. Maybe that's why they put me in this 9-to-5, to burn me out. Wow. No. Maybe that's why. But yeah, who knows? But yeah. Let's get back to the Bible study. Why don't we? This whole channel is a glorified Bible study and math channel, which is great. I mean, that's all I ever wanted it to be. That's all I know. I think coming into it, I really looked up to people like these political streamers like Vosh and Destiny, as embarrassing as that is, as like bad as those people have really shown themselves to be. I feel like coming out of high school, entering college, I guess Euron Brook was probably another, but all these people had their little internet shows, and they talked about current events, and they got to dive deep onto these intellectual topics. And I think seeing that made me really excited, and I wanted to jump into that too, and I wanted to have my own little show and argue with people and do all this stuff. And I think growing up, I just haven't had that drive to do that to the same extent. And maybe that is just getting older. Like back then, I would love just diving in, and it just came super natural, like diving into these comment sections, diving into a Discord channel, arguing with a bunch of people, hopping into voice chats with people who I know are going to disagree with me. I used to go into like Destiny's Discord server and argue with people about property rights and just like super esoteric political topics and ideologies and stuff like that. And obviously back then it was coming from an objectivist perspective, but yeah, you can see obviously my channel kind of went dead for a couple years and really became a Christian video, because I really do like this process of like coming up with ideas, writing it all down, organizing it in a video format and presenting it to the world. There's something very clarifying about doing that sort of thing. Journal, writing down a whole script and just reading it out for the camera. There's something satisfying about that, and I feel like it helps me quite a bit as well when it comes to explaining things, and also just having confidence in front of a camera, having confidence presenting things to people, because that's also not something that has ever come natural to me at all. I have this preference for listening in any conversation that I'm a part of. Like, if I don't have to talk, I'm not going to. And anybody who knows me in real life, depending on the person, I think once I get to know you, I tend to talk. He's quiet until he gets to know you. No, once like I'm really close with somebody, then I start really opening up and really talking. In one-on-one settings too, I'm a lot better. But even then, like, my natural preference has always just been to sit in a room and listen to people talk. And anyone in like a Bible study with me, or who's been part of some group event with me, or in some like social setting with me, has an understanding of that. But I think this channel has always been good for doing the opposite, kind of forcing me, like right now, like just sitting in front of a camera, forcing words to come out of my mouth. So I think that's a good thing. And this channel's almost just like a videotaped journal for me in a sense, which I don't know, maybe that's cringe, but that's another topic. People in my generation are averse to appearing cringe is genuinely crippling. I don't know if someone who doesn't understand this, I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain it, but so much content online that's constantly doing something embarrassing, basically, being super passionate about something, like to the point where it's embarrassing, or getting super angry or super sad or anything like that, and it's funny to watch. Maybe this also probably ties into desensitization too. But then you watch all this stuff, and then you start to get this sense of like, oh, I can tell when this person's kind of being cringe, or this person's also kind of being cringe, and you want to avoid that. You don't want to be seen that way. You hear about all these different archetypal, so you start stripping down certain parts of yourself and start stripping away certain hobbies, and stop ever trying to be too passionate about one thing, or you don't want to appear too nerdy. You don't want to appear too too invested in one certain niche topic. I feel like those are probably the ones that would apply most to what I'm doing, making theology content and math content, and doing it online too. But ultimately, I don't think that that's something that we should care about, and that's something that I need to get better about too. Yeah, I mean, that's something that I think this also helped me with, to somewhat of an extent, because a lot of times if you're going to go on the internet, you're going to face a lot of criticism, and people are going to just not be very thoughtful in their comments, not very courteous, not very kind. Talking about Nick Fuentes, there's a lot of comments on that, though a lot of those were honestly funny. I thought there are great comments under that video sometimes, and honestly, like, those ones in particular don't get to me as much as some of the ones where a commenter makes me feel dumb. Yeah, I think that's probably a better one. Like, if there's like a valid critique where, I'm trying to think of a good example of this. I don't know if I have one off the top of my head where I genuinely just did misunderstand something. No, but those ones are helpful too. trying to think of a better example. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I actually have any good examples of that. Um, hmm. I guess, yeah, maybe like someone calling you an idiot, but then also making a like decent point. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. About 30 minutes in, still 0 viewers. That's okay. I'm still gonna try doing this. I don't know. There's no point in really giving up on building the channel out. Because yeah, I think it's probably helpful for me, and I don't know. Maybe it's all just cope. Maybe it is all just me coping with the fact that it's small, and then I just tell myself like, oh, I don't even really care. I think there's a part of me that definitely does care about the lack of growth, and I think that there's ways that I could probably do things better, be better about reaching out to people. But ultimately, I need to constantly remind myself that that's like not why I do stuff for this channel. It's not really why I post on this channel. It's not to create this massive platform and to constantly be arguing with people and debating people. I think that was kind of like what I really wanted to do when starting this channel. I think my interests and passions have really moved away from that into a more like video essay type of content. Yeah, I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Oh, I have Top Chat on right now. I should turn it to live. Let's see if there's any more. No, there's nothing. That's okay. It's okay. We're still here. We're still here week after week. So that's honestly the one thing to be proud of at the end of the day, is just being able to make this content, produce it for you guys every single week. And it's ultimately, when doing this type of stuff, it's that discipline and commitment that'll really help you get through, continue to push forward, and stuff like that. Let me think if there's any other topics I can talk about. Okay, let's talk about. So last week I was talking about the Marian dogmas on this channel, and we started talking about the Immaculate Conception, and I think that one is such an interesting. I do really like some of the stuff that I talked about earlier in that video about sort of the fittingness of the Immaculate Conception, the idea of needing sort of this pure vessel for Christ to be in, like the Ark of the Covenant, for God to be, to bear God, you need some sort of pure vessel. I find those ideas somewhat convincing. I also like the idea of the new Eve. The idea that for Mary to be able to give that free yes, she would have needed to been free from sin in the same way that Eve was, because Eve at that point in time did not have original sin. She wasn't in sin, stained by sin to the extent that all of the rest of us are, where her choice to sin was entirely free. For the rest of us, we have this stain that disposes us towards sin. We're not entirely free of sin. Sin has a grip on us because of the original sin that's passed down to us. Now, Mary, on the other hand, for her to be the new Eve, which is what the Catholics would posit, she would also need to have that sort of free choice, that lack of a disposition towards sin on her will. And the free yes, I think, I like the Catholics talk about it. I think that's also just a crucial aspect of Mariology. I think that's important. I think that's beautiful, and I think that's why we should feel honor for Mary. Not necessarily hyperdulia or worship, or give her her worthship, as Trent Horn said. I can make a video about Marian veneration and that sort of stuff at another day. So I think the free yes is beautiful, and I mentioned that in the video as well. The new Eve thing is great as well. The problem is so I find that idea of her being free from sin, able to give that yes freely, to do that sort of stuff freely, I think that a lot of that is beautiful. Like, this person not stained from sin, able to do what the rest of us cannot do, and redeem us in the process. You can kind of maybe get where I'm going. The problem is, the reason why that's beautiful is not because it's something that Mary did or that it applies to Mary. The reason for the beauty of that is because it's what Christ did. Christ is the new Adam. You can make that parallel to the new Eve, but I don't think it's as explicit in Scripture, and I think there's a certain beauty to it, and that's why I still would say that I'm pretty open to the Immaculate Conception being true. Although I wonder how, like, I don't think it'd be very rigorous to do, but I wonder how likely or how defensible it would be to believe in the Immaculate Conception without belief in perpetual virginity. It's completely logically consistent, but I don't know, at least on its face, I don't know if there's some deeper contradiction there that would require you to believe in one without the other. And most Protestants, like, Immaculate Conception is one that's very far from their belief, similar to the Assumption. But actually, I almost find the Immaculate Conception to be pretty plausible, at least from just sort of a biblical. Isn't as clear as someone like Jesus and whatnot would like to say that it is. Just the idea that Mary is full of grace, or something like that. I think there's potentially that argument from the Greek being there. If you Google it, it says that it refers to a completed action and that stuff. I don't want to like dive too much into that, into the Greek there either, because I could say something wrong. But I think there's a debate to be had with that verse in particular. But I don't know. It's very difficult, because it really, saying that Mary was sinless really elevates her, like, beyond any other human. That's kind of one of the harder things that I have when accepting a lot of the ways that Catholics treat Mary and a lot of the Marian devotion. It's that very, very human anymore, to in a certain sense, where it almost feels like that. And I'm not saying that's the case. Like, obviously, like, she's still viewed as a creature. It's almost similar to how, and this analogy might break down too, but it's almost similar to how Arians view Christ, like, still a created being, but a really powerful created being, and one of the greatest of all created beings, and all that sort of stuff. Which maybe that's fine. Maybe that's true. I just don't see it. I think that so much of that has come and been added on later on. And I feel like the testimony of history really more closely aligns with the view that a lot of the Marian devotion has been added on throughout the years. Which sucks, because Mary is important, and a lot of people react to some of the Marian excesses by going the exact opposite other way and ignoring her entirely, only bringing her up at Christmas. And I think that is a bad impulse as well. Mary literally is the mother of God. And she bore God in her womb. And her yes is an act of faith that is incredible. Like almost a Kierkegaardian knight of faith in the way that Abraham is, described in Fear and Trembling. So I think for all those of devotion that Catholics would perform. And I say this as someone growing up Catholic. You have statues of Mary. Your churches are named after Mary. Which actually naming a church after I go to a church named after a saint as a Protestant, so that's fine, I guess. But the different titles for her, the rosary being 90+% about Mary, it's a little much for a created being. And those are obviously Protestant impulses, but also it's just a little much for someone who's mentioned so little in the Bible. And I say that with all respect to Mary, but I don't want to elevate her. Oh, Mary wouldn't even want to be venerated in this way, but I think it's kind of true. Yeah. I don't know. And I also, seeing in going to Mexico and seeing all the depictions of Mary, and there's the cool Lady of Guadalupe stuff, but then it's interspersed with all this weird demon stuff. I don't know. There's something that makes me a little uncomfortable about everything around that. Yeah, but that's a little bit more on the Mary subject. Sorry if I'm a little low energy today, guys. It was a long weekend. I didn't get a ton of sleep. Was walking around to Disneyland all day, both days. So, we are a little bit tired. I also just ran 10 miles, I guess. So I didn't even think about that. That's yeah. Yeah, sometimes when I'm working from home, especially on these Mondays, I like to run over my lunch breaks, and then so a little exhausted, but I don't know. I didn't really have anything prepared or anything planned to record this week. And I do have stuff for the next two, so I've been doing monthly live streams, so I wanted to continue that and have that be this week. It was really, for me, the choice was this week or next week. I figured with Disney and with that stuff, I'm just going to do the stream this week. Was hoping for better turnout, but 45 minutes in, still 0 viewers. We've had some good streams, though. So I'm still holding out hope for the fact that maybe sometime we'll get more people, but we'll keep building the channel. We'll keep going. But yeah, I think it's probably about time to move on with my day at this point. Shoot. Well, that was definitely a stream. That's a Kierkegaard chapter, right? That's in Fear and Trembling, right? That's a chapter. Fear and Trembling chapters. No, what is it? Am I not thinking about anything? Am I not thinking about it right? I know like tuning up is one of them. Yeah. Yeah, maybe not actually. Huh. Never mind. I'm wrong. What am I thinking of? I'm gonna figure this out. Maybe not live, but I'll figure it out after. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Or thank myself for yapping at the camera for the last 45 minutes. Was it a waste of time? I hope not. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. Maybe I'll just add Nick Fuentes to the title or something because I talked about him briefly in this video. So yeah, maybe I'll do that. Maybe that'll get it some views. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's be done with this particular video. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the stream.